Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to NBR, or as we like to call it around here, Nothing But Rants, the show where I find topics that I'm oddly passionate about and I pontificate upon them. These are not hot takes, but rather takes that I'm hot about. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome in and happy Thursday to you. Don't typically do a lot of self-bragging or anything like that. We don't do a lot of self-news around here. We don't even do a very good job of self-promotion. I don't even think I do a good enough job of telling you to like, subscribe, rate, review, all that good stuff. I don't think I do a good enough job. But when something happens in the life and in the family, we feel the need to tell you about it. So today, your boy got a little slight promotion. Going to be the director of recruiting now for Fan Nation and SI.com. And when that came out, the news came out, there was like, hey, does this mean Brooks is like leaving the Georgia space or whatever? What I haven't told people and what you guys are just now finding out here on the channel, a little breaking news here. With that came a new contract as well. So going to be at SI and Fan Nation for a good little while now. So we're nice and comfortable. We're nice and happy. And what that means for you guys over here is nothing in terms of where you get me and how you get me. None of that is changing. So kudos to us as a family. We keep getting bigger and new things come as we get bigger. So yeah, and we are in the middle of, a 41 high school, kind of run across the state of Georgia now. And I was talking to some people. I was like, look, man, like as good as the talent in the state of Georgia is, as great as the football is here in the state of Georgia, I see far more Georgia Tech football players, Ole Miss football players, Texas Tech football players, right? Colorado football players. I see a lot more of those football players on a day-to-day basis doing something like I do on in the month of May every year than I even do Georgia players. And what does that mean for like a Georgia fan? Listen to this right now. Well, what that means is that Georgia has, and you've well already known this since Kirby Smart's taken over, Georgia has approached recruiting at a much more national level now. So if you look at their strategies, or if you're a patreon.com/Brooks Also subscriber, and every single morning when you wake up, you get a detailed information and detailed like map basically of where these coaches are, you will notice that very rarely are they geolocated in the state of Georgia. Very rarely are they primarily focused here. They're somewhere in Texas. They're somewhere in Mobile. They're in, East and West Florida. They're in South Florida. They're in California. They're all over the country. And what it's kind of made me realize is that doing my job here in the state is great. I get to see a bunch of great quality football, but I'm rarely seeing Georgia football players. What will ultimately be Georgia football players, right? I think in the next, and 2024's class is incredible. But if you look at it, really, they're probably half and half. We're going to say half players from in-state, half players from out of state. About average if you look at it over year. So, yeah, what that means is you're going to spend more money than anybody else in the country in recruiting. Okay, so every year when those articles come out, it's prioritized at Georgia more than others. Kirby Smart is Mr. Recruit. Like, he loves recruiting and prioritizes recruiting more than any program in the country. So that's number one. Number two, your ability to get into the room everywhere else is unprecedented. It has not been to this level at the University of Georgia ever. The G has always meant something. Walk around with that power G. It's always meant something. But now, obviously, as two-time reigning champions, it means a lot more. So your selection pool now, there is not a player in this country that Georgia looks at and evaluates and says, nah, we don't have a chance to go get them. So what that means is guys that used to be Georgia caliber football players here in the state of Georgia, they're going to get passed up nowadays. So you're going to see in-state really, really great football players. You're going to see them go elsewhere. And your first inclination in years past would have been, what did we do to miss on that football player? Whereas now I'm telling you, your strategy and your mental thinking should probably be, why did we not take that player? You see the difference in those two discussions, right? Why did we miss on that player? Why didn't we take that player? I think that is now the kind of the difference and the reshaping of the mind that you have to have if you're a Georgia football fan at this point. And what a first world problem to have for you guys. So obviously I've been to 7 schools now this week. We went to 7. We'll go to 8 tomorrow with Gainesville. I thought it'd be a good opportunity for me to kind of unload my recruiting notebook. I'm looking at it right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, 8, 9, and 10. 10 guys that we're going to talk about here today that either have a Georgia offer or on the Georgia board or will be on the Georgia's board on the Bulldogs board in a very near future, right? So on top of everybody else that we saw the last 4 or 5 days, we saw some dogs as well, or some potential dogs. 2 commits that we're going to talk about tonight. Let's talk about them off rip. We'll go ahead and knock them out and give you the taste, right? I saw Zacoby White, and Zacoby is a football player that I've seen a ton. Every time the evaluation gets slightly better, right? I really, really worry when I see kids, because particularly Georgia in-state kids, if you're committed to Georgia, I'm going to see your butt from the moment you are committed, every event you have the rest of your life, like basically until you go to Georgia. I'm going to see you every opportunity I can because I want to make sure that evaluation is changing. I want to make sure it is getting better and better and better because that's what you got to do to play at Georgia. You got to keep getting better, right? So Zacoby checks that box. Every time I see him, he's added something to his game, right? I saw him this spring, back in January and early February. Hey, coach, I'm thinking about, trying out some defensive back stuff. I like the way it challenges me. I'm looking for a new challenge. I'm going to go over there and do that. Whew, love that. I see him this spring, right? Noticeably thicker. The kid has obviously put on weight. Kudos to him. Okay, I had a Division I coach text me after I left Cass today, and he says, do you think Zacoby White is a Power 5 football player? Do you think Zacoby White is an SEC football player? Will he play at Georgia, basically, was the question. And I told them what I tell you guys all the time. If you don't have prototypical Georgia physical traits, right? Zacoby is not 6'1". Okay, Zacoby is not 200 pounds. He's not, this physical nature that typically Georgia players have to be to play there or be recruited there, right? It's why he's a high-ranked 3-star, 4-star, whatever the hell he's ranked. It's because he's not this huge physical presence, right? So he doesn't have this one-of-one physical trait. But I've told you guys all the time, if you don't check that box around here at the University of Georgia, what do you have to do? You have to have some type of 1% trait, okay? And what is Zacoby's? Zacoby has 1% twitch. That box that is 5'9", 190 pounds, whatever he weighs, that box of explosiveness, okay, that TNT dynamite stick, that is what Georgia is investing in. And every time I see him, that checks out. That is the box. So as long as we're doing something in that area to check that one-of-one trait, do you have that one-of-one trait? Loves Georgia, one-of-one twitch. He's a dog, right? You keep him in the class, you keep him there. And I think that's ultimately what's going to happen. He's a great addition in that 2024 room. Excuse me, kind of wasn't even an addition. He was one of the first ones in. And there's another thing that Zacoby had for him. And a lot of these in-state guys, they have to have it. They have to earn it, essentially. Zacoby went up to the University of Georgia and absolutely put on a show last summer. And I would imagine he's going to do the same this summer. So when you go up there to that facility and you put it down like he did, then you get to be a Georgia Bulldog. And that's just the way it is, right? And that's the way it ought to be if you're running a high-level program. The next dog we saw, Malachi Tolliver. I'm 100% honest with you guys on these networks when I do this. I had questions when he committed, like, hey, is this guy going to be an SEC athlete? Does he move like he's supposed to? Yada, yada, yada. I hadn't seen the kid in pads yet. I just seen what was on tape. I seen what I seen in shorts and T-shirts at Under Armour events, and shouts out Josh Richardson at the Velocity camps. I'd seen what I'd seen, but I didn't know who he was as a football player, just who he was as an athlete. And he didn't quite check fully. Okay, he kind of like half grade in the box. Didn't quite fully check the athleticism score for me, and I don't know if he still does, but it doesn't matter because he's going to have a position change anyways. We'll talk about that. But, dude, when I watched him practice, when I watched him put pads on, we're good. Not that Georgia coaches need my approval, not that you need my approval, not that my approval means anything. It means a whole hell of a lot to some. But not that my scouting eye is perfect, okay? I'm not one of these people. But I approve. I approve of Malachi Tolliver at the University of Georgia. I think he has a frame that is Georgia-worthy. I think he has some FU about him, all right? I don't think that kid likes to get pushed around, and that matters, okay? So when you get to the University of Georgia, if you're not prepared, you will get prepared, right? You will get humbled, in a word. And if you're not okay, or if you're okay, rather, if you're just okay with getting pushed around, that's not a place you're going to survive in because they don't like baby you. They don't walk you around, don't hold your hand, none of that. And another thing, he loves Georgia. I think as the portal and we're going to talk about the portal tonight, as you can see, kind of based off the headlines. But as you'll notice, as the portal continues to impact college football, the smarter programs will prioritize in-state kids that have these high-end traits, but most importantly, love the university. Like if they weren't football players, they would try their hardest to get into the University of Georgia. Malachi Tolliver is one of those football players. If Malachi Tolliver ever transfers out of the University of Georgia, it will be to seek further employment elsewhere. Essentially, it will not be because he don't like it there no more. All right, it'll be because he got to go somewhere else, and that's okay. We're going to talk about gotten to go somewhere else tonight. I forgot to tell everyone, like, subscribe, hit all that good stuff. Appreciate you for being here. As the night goes, the audience grows, and we appreciate you for being here. I'm just dumping notes. This is the first time, long time, we've written them down. Normally, we're typing them out. Normally, we're being all professional. Tonight, we're just kind of going off the hip because, we had a long week, an exciting week. Saw a lot of great football players that I feel like getting, not necessarily my opinions out on, but just kind of introducing you guys to them, because these are all, like I said, every player that we're going to talk about tonight that I've seen this week, these are all players that are going to impact your recruiting board in one way or the other. A primary example of that is Brody McWhorter. Brody McWhorter is a 2026 quarterback. You probably don't know that name because he's not Julian Lewis, but he is in the state of Georgia. And I'm going to tell you what, I saw that kid today, and the first thing I said was, holy shit, coach, that's a big kid. That is a big kid. I did not know that. I did not know that about Brody McWhorter. I did not know that Brody McWhorter had a 65, 62, 63-yard arm based off what I saw in warm-ups today. I did not know any of that. I'm going to tell you right now, whatever happens with Julian Lewis, the state of Georgia, okay in 2026 at the quarterback position. I don't like to do, this guy's a guy, he's a 5-star, yada, 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 quarterback, yes, yeah. That's a big physical kid that is running an offense and being coached professionally. There you go. That one's going to be loaded up. I don't know if he has a Georgia offer. He should. But you got to be very finicky, not necessarily finicky about this. Here's the great thing about both these two players in 2026, quarterbacks in particular. Quarterbacks can be very protective. Coach, if you recruit me, are you going to recruit that guy? Coach, if I come there, is that guy coming there? Coach, this, that, because there's only one of them, right? It's not like a D-line rotation where you have 8 guys play 5 positions. This ain't it. It's the quarterback position. There's one of one. When I talk to people around Brody and when I talk to people around Julian, I don't think they care about anybody else. I think they just care about doing what they do. And that's awesome. That's great to have as young people. And it's extremely hard to have. I mean, even to this day, like I consider myself an adult. I try to behave like an adult. It's really hard to have horse blinders on at all times. It's really, really hard to walk in this life or walk around this life and not go, hey, man, what's that guy got? Or, hey, man, what's that dude over there doing? I want to find out more about that, right? Or, hey, why is he getting this? Why are they getting that? Why is she getting this? It's so hard not to do that, right? But when I talk to both of these young men, I don't hear any of that. Now they're competitive about it, right? One wants to be better than the other. And they haven't been pitched against each other like this yet, but I'm telling you, they will be. There is going to be a time where the national media is very aware of Brody McWhorter, all right? And when that time comes, that 2026 battle is going to be interesting. Even though I don't think you have to pick and choose. I think you recruit both and be thankful and happy if you land either. Particularly if you're the University of Georgia, I think they're like I said, they're fine in 2026. You land one of those two dudes, you're going to be very, very happy in the long run. But yeah, big kid, like not like 6'5" big, like holy shit, but just like that's a big kid. Let's stick with the Cass kids. So Saul Brody, Bear is his cousin. Bear McWhorter just popped an offer from Alabama. And I don't know if I can be this candid about a conversation with a gentleman I just had, but I'm going to do it because it's very rare. And I wish more parents were like this. I really do. And I told Mr. McWhorter, I hope I'm like this because I doubt I will be. But I have my questions about Bear McWhorter, just like I have my questions about a lot of these guys on this list, because we're talking about whether or not they're going to play at one of 3, like elite football programs. So you got to be like a top 200 player nowadays, top 250 player to be signed at the University of Georgia or to be signed at the University of Alabama, right? So Bear McWhorter just picked up an Alabama offer. And I could see the look in his dad's face, and he's a freshman. He's a rising sophomore. He's a 2026 offensive lineman. I can see the look on his dad's face like, I don't know. I don't know if we're Alabama good yet, right? I don't know if we're Georgia good yet. And I'm telling you right now, I told his dad, that's not even uncommon. Uncommon is not even the word. For a parent to know that my child is not quite that yet, but we are very appreciative for that to happen, dude, doesn't happen on the trail. Every kid I talk to, every parent I talk to, not only thinks they deserve and are warranting every single offer that they have, but definitely deserves more. Every single parent I ever talked to. So this is the good news for me as an evaluator. I have my physical limitation questions about Bear. I don't know if he's going to develop into a guy that's going to be able to play tackle, for instance, in the SEC. Okay. But the fact that he has physical limitations right now as a rising sophomore, and more importantly, there are people around him that are not pumping sunshine up his ass all the time, means that he has a really, really strong chance of getting much, much better. Right? So that's the lesson. And not that we're out here giving out lessons on this channel, but that's the lesson I learned today was that A, there are parents like this that exist, and B, that's the parent I want to be. And I would like people to hold me to that when I become a parent of anyone that is anything, right? Which is going to happen. I don't know what my kids are going to be, but I'm sure I'm going to have an immense, immense pride about whatever it is that they have, right? But you got to have a sense of realism in your pride, right? And damn, if I didn't get a sense of realism from the McWhorter family today, and that was awesome. So yeah, we could talk about football players from that perspective all we want, but shouts out to that one. Those are the things that I learned on the trail, right? I can watch your tape over and over and over again. But until I talk to you, until I get to know you or the people around you or the environment that you're from, I'm just giving opinions about tape. And even though we grind the tape, even though we are the film god, this is a sport that humans play, right? So you better get to know the human if you're going to evaluate the football player. So another football player that I liked a lot, and it's not that I discovered him. He's already got Power 5 offers. Cale Ellis, offensive tackle out there at Cass. I'm into that one. I'm into that one that like I might have sent it to somebody at Georgia saying, hey, bro, like this dude could play center for y'all. I don't know if he's going to be an SEC tackle. I don't know if he's going to start in the SEC at guard. But that dude is built like a great center. So, yeah, Cale Ellis, a name I'd be paying attention to on the recruiting trail as well. And then Marcus Maskell. We'll finish out with the offensive lineman before we talk about Justin Green. Marcus Maskell, offensive lineman from South Gwinnett. His brother played at Clemson and was I'm pretty sure a really highly touted recruit. Marcus is beautiful. Okay, beautiful. From an offensive line's perspective, gorgeous. Okay, 6'5", 200. Carries 295 pounds flawlessly. I mean, right? So, real thin torso, real long arms. Okay, just like a tackle. Until you see him waist down, and then you see a big. It's hard to talk about good offensive line without sounding like this. He got big old thick butt, some big old thick hamstrings, and some big old thick quads. That from his midsection, from his belly button basically to his kneecaps, that boy thick. All right, guard all day. So upper body tackle all day, pedigree tackle all day, lower body guard. So going to be an interesting eval there. So yeah, that's my Marcus Maskell tape. I know they're recruiting him. I know they're looking at him. I don't know if he's going there. There's a cut basically. They're probably going to only take 5 guys. I would imagine in this class. Little intel for you on that offensive line room. And we'll see where he lands on that cut. And on that list. So there you go. Let's talk about Justin Green. You know, it's not a bad class here in the state of Georgia at defensive tackle. It's just not a great one. I think there are 2 guys in the state of Georgia right now that we could just like circle in pen. There's a bunch of guys in pencil right now that they're scouting, recruiting, paying attention to. But I think there are 2 football players we can circle in pen right now. One is Edric Houston, you all know about from Buford. The other is Justin Green. So, I mean, put that dude in hard pen. Circle him hard. Okay, well, I was looking at him in Mountain View yesterday. Trey Scott was there as well. The only Georgia coach I've ran into this week. We'll probably run into more next week. I don't know. Can't guarantee it. But Actually, a lot of them have already made their South Georgia runs, and I'm going down there next week, so maybe not. But nonetheless, we don't necessarily depict the schedule based off Georgia coaches to let you know. We just kind of know where the good players are, and we go. If we run into a Georgia coach, we run into a Georgia coach. But if you want to know where they're at, patreon.com/Brooks Austin every single morning. Anyways, continuing our discussion. Justin Green, about 6'3", maybe 6'2.5", about 95 pounds. Very intellectual young man. I bet he watches comic book stuff. Seems like that type of guy. But some violent ass hands on that kid. Some violent hands. Some, oh, your hands are on me now. Not anymore. Clear to me that he works hard at developing his hands as well. I'm excited about that eval, where that's going, how that's going to go. I know he's in a small group right now of defensive end, defensive tackle, hybrid, big end, what they play at Georgia, basically football players that they're evaluating. A name to know, a name to pay attention to. That is thoughts from the trail. How about that? We see a lot of football players here in the state of Georgia. I had coaches texting me today like, hey, man, are you driving back home every day after that? Yes, I am. Look, dude, it's what I think is hilarious about my job. Not necessarily my job, but people who do my job. If you live in Atlanta and your butt is not out on the trail in May and you work in sports media, particularly covering anything revolving recruiting, what are you doing? What are you doing? Get your butt in the car and take your butt to a football practice. It's good for your soul, let alone good for your business. For the love of God. Yeah, man, like this stuff is awesome. I every day, like I know for a fact because I've been there before. I got goosebumps today multiple times, different environments, because this is my shit. Like I love this stuff, right? I get so hyped when I get to go to practice. Like I told somebody today, I don't miss football. I do not miss playing football. I do not. Now, part of it is because I get to be around it all day, every day, but I do not miss playing football until that first play of an 11-on-11 at actual football practice. Like you go to the right places. Right? You go to the right places. I only go to the right places. I want to say, because it bores me to see bad football. Okay. Not necessarily bad football, but unenergetic football. I need to go places where the other people love it too. That's why I need my soul to be around during this time of the year. It's the only way I'm going to work as hard as I do at it. But no, dude, that I don't miss it until that first whistle and that first pad pop and that first whoo from whatever big fat ass defensive line coach that's too excited his player made a play. Right? I don't miss it until right then. At that moment, I'm like, damn, wish I could have another one back. Right? Wish I could have another one back. All right, here we go. Matthew McKinney. I don't do a lot of questions, but I just looked up and saw this one. And this is, I take questions like this during NBR so I can clarify things that I just said if I look up and see something like this. Matthew McKinney says, Sub Brooks, can you try and describe what makes, quote, heavy or violent hands? Okay, so I used to describe having heavy hands. This is a term my stepdad gave me, bricks for hands, right? If someone touches you, you ever been hit by someone or punched by someone and it just feels like their hands carry more mass and more inertia than other people? Those are heavy hands. That's exactly what that is, right? Or violent hands. What are violent hands? Well, there's a lot of defensive linemen and offensive linemen that kind of just place hands. They just kind of put their hands on a defender or they put their hands on an offensive player. No. Violent hands look like what violent hands look like, right? When you watch a boxer throw a jab, that's violent as shit. When you watch me throw a jab, you're like, all right, that guy kind of got a jab, right? Not violent, right? That's the difference. That's a separator, okay? And heavy hands, in my opinion, are just, you either have them or you don't. That's not something I can develop in you. I can develop violent hands. I can teach you how to fight with your hands and how to do it right and all that good stuff. But heavy hands, you're just born with that, right? Tate Ratledge, heavy ass hands. Michael Morris, heavy ass hands. Ernest Green, heavy ass hands. Okay. Amarius Mims, just a big dude with strong hands. When he puts his hands on you, locked out and good, right? But it's not put hands on. Poof. Solomon Kinley, heavy ass hands, big, heavy striker, right? Those kind of things. So there you go. A little clarification right there for you. Hey man, I want to give a shout out. I've already done plenty of shout outs out for Patreon. Should we give a shout out? Who else? Shouts out Fan Nation, Dogs Daily. Shouts out my mama. Shouts out Sway. No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good on the shouts out. Shouts out you guys for watching. Hit that thumbs up button while you can. We did thoughts from the trail. We did our upcoming schedule. Let's talk a little bit about upcoming schedule right quick before we get any further, because we got some dogs coming up this week as well that I'm super excited about seeing. I love going down to South Georgia. I think it makes me very, not necessarily unique. There's other people in my industry that do it, but I love going down there because the football is not necessarily different, but it is. The kids are different for sure. Up here in North Atlanta and up here in Gwinnett and Cobb and even both up 75 and up 85, a lot of these kids are like conditionalized to seeing or conditionalized to being around media or whatever, or, the machine that has become football and recruiting. South Georgia kids don't know nothing but football. They just there. They just there out there grinding. And there's something about that to me that just is special. I find joy in finding people who find joy in football, like I was saying earlier. All right, so next week, big week. We're going to the home of the birthing grounds of yours truly. We're gonna hit Douglas County next week. We're gonna start at Lithia, head over to DC, and wrap up the day at Alexander. A lot of good football players. Douglas County just offered Georgia just offered 2 receivers at Douglas County. Lithia had a kid last year, a 210-pound linebacker that was running like 10.9s last spring. I'm excited to see them. Alexander's got a 2027, Thomas 2027 quarterback that I'm excited about named Thomas Winston. So Monday's a big day. Then Tuesday we're going to Cobb County. Big day in Cobb County. We got Kell, Walton, North Cobb, and Kennesaw Mountain on Tuesday. And then Wednesday we head south. We're going to go to Perry, Peach County, and Houston. And then wake up Thursday morning, Colquitt. Got 6 a.m. practice. How about them apples? 6 a.m. practice. So going to hit Colquitt on Wednesday or Thursday rather, and then go see Lowndes and Valdosta. Come back up and watch Lee practice on Thursday, and then Friday of next week, boys and girls, go. I don't know if they're selling tickets, but go buy a ticket to that Norcross Buford scrimmage. Just do it. There's only going to be about 20 Division I football players on it. So if you got an itching for some like Division I caliber football, there's some available to you this coming up week in the state of Georgia. I know I'll be there at that Buford Norcross game, and I know there will be. I'll probably talk to a dozen coaches that are going to be there as well. So come through. It'll be a good opportunity to watch some good high school football. We were talking today, the producers, or producers as I call them, my boy Dr. J. Will and Kirby. We were talking about segments to do tonight. And I just had an idea like, hey, man, like if we just looked through the guys that have left the University of Georgia via the portal, I'm sure we'll find something. If we just listed them out, if we just paid attention and tracked them like, hey, this player left in this year, he went to this school, he was either drafted or not drafted this year, right? If we just went through and tracked them and placed them like that, not only would we probably find out a little bit something about Georgia's program, but we'll just learn information in general. So I had him do it. Jonathan, shouts out Dr. J. Will, stats and info for the department here if you didn't know. Dr. _ J. Will on Twitter is a dynamite follow. If you're not doing it, you should. Don't know what you're doing, but you should be following him. We tracked it today, okay? And since 2019, right? If you haven't heard by now, we classified Kirby Smart's first recruiting class in 2016 or 2017. The first guys to start hitting the portal are in 2019. Okay, so since 2019, the University of Georgia has had 48 scholarship players enter the portal. Okay, I'm not talking about Prather Hudson. I love Prather Hudson to death, but he got taken off this list because he was not a scholarship football player until he was. Not a scholarship football player. 48 scholarship football players since 2019 have hit the portal. Okay. And I'm looking at them. In 2019, there were 5 of them. The only one that would have ever had a chance to start at the University of Georgia was Justin Fields. Obviously, Jeremiah Holloman, we know the deal with that, had to get out of there. In 2020, okay, the only starter, another 5 hit the portal. The only starter, the only guy playing reasonable minutes and snaps was Cade Mays. Okay, that was the year Brenton Cox, Otis Reese, and Devod Wilson all hit the portal. Devod Wilson obviously hit in the portal because of a guy that hit the portal the next year, Tyreek Stevenson, who is the only other starter so far on this list of football players that have hit the portal. But in 2021, that's the first year the first-time transfer rule actually gets enacted, right? So in 2019 and 2020, 5 guys each particular year hit the portal, none of which, other than Cade, right, were really players. They didn't really have playing time. They weren't really getting playing time at the University of Georgia. One-time transfer portal hits, and you start seeing not a mass exodus, but you really start seeing a high rate of these guys that aren't playing start to hit the portal. And that's what our research has told us. Since 2019, I'm looking at a couple of names that I've highlighted, okay? A.D. Mitchell, Bear Alexander, Jermaine Burton, don't know why I said it like that, Jermaine Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson, Cade Mays. Those 6 football players over the last 5 years are the only football players that were ever getting playing time at your university that left. The rest of these names, I'm not saying they don't matter, but there's a reason they left your roster. They weren't getting playing time, right? The Demetrius Robinsons of the world. D-Rob was a great football player. Wasn't getting playing time at Georgia, right? The Major Burnses of the world, the Tommy Bushes of the world, the John Cedars of the world, the Matt Landerses of the world, the Trey Blunts of the world, the DeJuan Mathises of the world. These guys leaving your program, guys, guess what? I don't see a one other than Tyreek Stevenson that somehow became a 3rd round, 2nd round, 1st round draft pick. None of them. All of them except for Jermaine Johnson. Jermaine Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson, the only 2 football players that have left the University of Georgia, and Justin Fields. Those 3. Okay, so they're starting to rack up now. Justin Fields, Tyreek Stevenson, and Jermaine Johnson. The only 3 football players out of 48, guys, that left Georgia, found better, greener grass, and became something outside of what they might not have become at Georgia, right? Does Amir Speed ever become a 6th round draft pick sitting on the bench at the University of Georgia? Probably not, right? Cade Mays definitely going to be a 6th round draft pick if he just sits on the bench at Georgia. He had enough tape. He definitely would have been all right, right? Clay Webb. Y'all remember that one? That's just a miss. That's just a miss. That's not some program detrimental aspect, right? But we definitely have seen an uptick. In 2021, as soon as one-time transfers, 11 guys hit the portal. We learned that, right? In 2022, 12 more hit. And since the portal opened in December of 2022, basically the calendar year of 2023, Georgia's had 15 players enter the portal, okay? 2 of which were starters, A.D. Mitchell and Bear Alexander, okay? There it is. So when you look at it and you like take it for a grand like total, you take a bird's eye view and you look down, you say, you know what? I would honestly argue that the portal has been better for Georgia processing their misses than anything else. I don't want to talk bad about a certain football player, so I'm not going to mention it. But if you've been following this channel, there were certain football players in that 2022 class where I was like, that's not a Georgia football player. Guess what? They're no longer on the roster. They're not there. They got rid of them. Not got rid of them, but they did what people are doing. If you're not going to play, it's the cold hard reality. You are dead weight. You are dead weight on the roster. We only have so many of these spots. You got to go. If you are not playing, you got to go. I have always approached it this way. I have talked about it on this channel forever. I think Georgia should apply the same rules and the same aspects when it comes to scholarship management as college baseball programs do. Okay, if Cole Wilcox, who was just on the Baxter Street Boys right here before we came on, if Cole Wilcox were on this channel right now, he would tell you there's God's honest truth about college baseball. If you are around for your senior year in college baseball, your scholarship is getting cut dramatically at a school like Georgia. They want your ass out. In 3 years, scholarships are so tight in college baseball. If you are not drafted your junior year, that 4th year might be on you, Bubba. You might be coming back to the University of Georgia, the University or Auburn University, or Alabama, or LSU, wherever it is. You might be coming back on your dime because they have, accounting-wise, they have accounted for your butt to be gone by the time you are a senior. You better be in that 62 round draft, right? Or however many hell the kids take, right? You better be going to single A rookie ball somewhere. This is the SEC. Your ass better be gone. And that's the same way I look at the University of Georgia nowadays. That 85 is so tight. That 85 scholarship limit is so tight. There's so many good players and influx moving all around that your roster has to be liquid and ability and have the ability flexible, I should say, not liquid. It should be extremely flexible. And the only way to do that is to be realistic about where people stand on your roster. That's it. I love Dominic Blaylock. I think he's a great football player and an even better human being. He was an asset to the University of Georgia, despite the fact that he only had like 30 career catches. Maybe. He was an asset to the room for 4 years. But after 4 years, you got to go. Right? Rylan Goody, same situation. Rylan Goody was great for the University of Georgia. He's two-time national champion. He's going to have a great year, 2 years at Mississippi State. Right? These are facts. This is good for these human beings that they can go out and get their run and get their playing time elsewhere. There are certain examples, though, of guys like year 2 into their career just upping and dipping. And I wouldn't say running from competition, but that's what it looks like, or understanding that they weren't made for that competition, which, by the way, it's normal. What's not normal is what the hell they did with the cornerback room this year. It's not normal to have one starter in Kamari Lassiter and then basically have 5 guys fighting for the other spot, and none of them run. None of them. Dalen Everett didn't tuck and run. Nyland Green didn't tuck and run. Julian Humphrey didn't tuck and run. A.J. Harris didn't tuck and run. Smoke Bowie didn't tuck and run. Those are 5 football players, ladies and gentlemen, that were ranked inside the top 150 in the nation. In the nation. 2 of those guys were 5 stars. They just hanging out. They just hanging out competing, baby, for one spot. That is asinine. That's not even absurd. It's asinine. It makes no sense. Brock Vandergrift makes no sense. Most agents would tell you that's bad business. Why are you sitting around there, son? We got to go get playing time. Nah, coach. Be where your feet are. Grow where you're planted. That shit don't make no sense. It's special. It's very, very special. So, as you sit here tonight on a Thursday in the middle of May the 4th be with you, but understand, okay, if you're listening to this program or you're a Georgia fan, understand you are very lucky, right? Just like I am very lucky to do this job. I appreciate you guys, man, for real. Super excited. We got a bunch of people here. Super excited for what's coming. Like I told you, things will always continue to change around here for the better. We will always continue to improve, but I can almost assure you, okay, almost with my life, okay, that I ain't going nowhere. I'm not going nowhere. We'll see y'all. Love you.